It's time for the brand new adventures of Spider-Man to begin. This is the follow-up storyline to Spider-Man Beyond, where Peter is back in the seat and living his best life. Or is he? This is Comicstorian. We're a channel that takes comic book storylines, breaking them down into audio dramas. The purpose is to allow you to keep up with comics and see what you would like to add to your collection. Today's sponsors are GFUEL. Use the code COMICS at checkout to get 10% off of your order, and we're running a contest in the description with Shortboxed. Click it to check them out and win a comic. We're also sponsored by ourselves. We've launched a podcast channel where we discuss superhero movies and shows. Check out Absolutely Marvel and DC. Now let's get into the main story, as this is the very beginning of a brand new, ongoing, Amazing Spider-Man storyline. It's been 6 months since it happened, and ever since then, Peter has just been trying to get by. There was something that happened to him, something that he can't even really talk about, something that even Aunt May can sense. Yet Peter just makes up lies to avoid talking about it. But Aunt May isn't the only one wondering about Peter. Since his return, Peter has been hounded by friends about where he's been. Even debt collectors have been waiting outside of his apartment building. However, the most persistent was Randy Robertson. Not only Peter's best friend, but the one who's been paying Peter's rent since he disappeared. As Peter tries to get to his apartment, Randy says, "Hey, I'm not here about the rent money or anything, but it'd be cool if I could get paid back. But since you don't really have any interest in your friends anymore, things are great with me and Janice. So good that I'm gonna ask her to marry me, Pete." Peter tries to put on a face telling him that that is great. But Randy goes on telling him that he's going to ask her father for permission. Not that people really do that anymore, but he figured he should because of all the murders that he's done. Going to be having dinner with him tonight. Think you could call in a couple of hours and check in? You know, just in case something happens. Peter manages to get into his apartment, closing the door on Randy, but Randy yells that something's not right with him and the beard isn't helping either. Peter takes a deep breath, reaching for his phone, and brings up Mary Jane's contact. He stares at the call button, but he eventually gives up. He then gets a message from Randy with the address of where he was having dinner tonight, asking if he remembered who Janice's father was. Peter takes a shower and cleans up with a better perspective, telling him, "All right, I'm still a good guy, regardless of what everyone thinks. So of course I gotta go check on Randy." He steps out onto the fire escape, feeling a sudden rush of heat, and he begins to sweat. Johnny Storm flies up. "Hey, you got a sec?" Peter tells him to stay away or at least turn down the heat. And Johnny tells him, "I can't. I told you. It's actually really traumatic for me. Of course you'd remember these little things if you weren't completely checked out." Peter tells him that the last thing that he remembers is that Reed and Sue didn't want him coming around. And Johnny tells him, "Because you stole from us, Pete!" "Yeah, well, I needed your help." "No, you needed people to look the other way while you screwed up your life. Were we supposed to let that happen?" Peter jumps off the fire escape, telling him, "Whatever, I don't have time for this. I gotta go check up on a friend." And Johnny watches, asking, "What do you think you're doing?" So a short while later, Randy is sitting down, telling him that he would like to thank him for meeting with him tonight. He knows that he's a busy businessman, but actually he has some business with him. Tombstone cuts into his steak, and Randy goes on, "I really care about your daughter. I wasn't sure if you're the traditional type, but I wanted to ask permission if I could take your daughter's hand in marriage." Tombstone stops eating. "When I grew up, it didn't matter what you asked. No one gave you nothing. So you didn't ask. You just took and then found out if you were strong enough to keep it." Randy begins to try and respond to that. I don't really, but Tombstone laughs. "Lighten up. We both know that Janice will do whatever she wants anyway. There was a day when I would have just broken your back for even asking. But maybe this is what it feels like to have enough. Plus, I don't want to get on your dad's bad side. You know he stabbed me with a pitchfork once?" Outside, Peter is watching, thinking to himself that Randy pulled it off. Good. He has some things to get to tonight. Like figure out what Tombstone's Lieutenant White Rabbit is doing with a bunch of goons in the back alley of a restaurant. As Rabbit leaves, Peter hops off the top of an SUV, and after taking the longest route possible to the Hudson, they pull up to a group of Rose's men waiting for them. Rabbit gets out and opens the back of the truck, stating that she hopes that they brought the money. These things are getting harder and harder to find these days. But Peter begins to yell at, asking, "Hey, is that a Goblin glider? How many miles does it have?" You always have to ask. You can get burned on those things. One of Rose's men yells out that it's a bust. "Digger!" And Peter pauses for a moment. "Digger? I know that." Suddenly, two giant green arms burst out of the truck that he's on, and they grab a hold of him. As Digger begins to choke Peter out, he yells, "I've been waiting for this for a long time." Peter tells himself that he has to think fast, so instead of trying to pull Digger's hands off, he begins to snap his fingers off. Digger screams out, and Peter asks, "What? You were choking me! And Digger shouts back at him, Rose said you killed me last time! Peter tells him, no, I wore you out and I melted you. There's a difference. One of Rose's men then grabs the glider, but Rabbit tells her men that they're trying to stiff them. Light them up! Bullets begin to fly. But while Rose's men take cover, Digger walks up behind the truck that he's hiding in, flipping it over onto one of the other trucks, causing it to explode. While Peter and Rabbit hide behind one of the SUVs, Rabbit says that it's a tough day to be Kareem. And Peter asks, who's Kareem? When suddenly a man begins to beat on the window, begging Rabbit to help. Peter sighs. I'll get Kareem. After ripping off the door, he pulls Kareem out, telling him to stay with him. And as for Rabbit, he isn't done with her yet. She looks at him. Are you sure? Sounds like the police are coming, and after the mess that you had with Bullseye, they're just as likely to take you in as me. Peter tells her that she's right. He needs to go. Can he at least offer her a thwip before leaving? But before Rabbit could ask, Peter starts to web her up to the truck, asking, do you by any chance know where Digger's going? And as she screams some very colorful obscenities at him, Peter attaches a tracker to the truck, telling her, fine, I'll go find Digger myself. 4 hours later, Peter nearly passes out in his apartment, telling himself that he didn't find Digger, but then again, he isn't sure what he could have done if he found Digger. And at that moment, his phone rings. He quickly answers it with Mary Jane telling him that he has to stop this. Peter tries to speak, but she cuts him off again. She tells him, don't call her again, and she hangs up. The next day, Peter gets up and sets out to try and find a job. But as he wanders, he finds every excuse to not look for the job. He spent hours walking around until suddenly a limo pulls up next to him. Tombstone tells Peter that he walks a lot. It's raining. Get in. Peter sighs as he climbs in. If you're planning on threatening my life, you picked the wrong night. Shut up. You know Spider-Man, right? Rose blew up my house last night after a deal went south. Cat barely made it. So we're going to war. So I need to get a message to Spider-Man. I want Spider-Man to know that this war that's about to happen, it's all his fault. Tell him that I'm gonna teach him how stupid all of his do-gooder crap is. Tell him that he is now my project. Got that? Peter laughs. And what's so funny? Peter tells him that Spider-Man just said he didn't have a lot going on. How he's been dying for something to do. So yeah, he'll tell him, and he's gonna love it. Tombstone stares for a moment, telling him, you're a weird dude. Get out of my car. Peter gets out into the rain, looking back at the building that he was looking at for most of the day. But instead of looking at it with sadness, he smiles and walks back home. Because inside of that building, Mary Jane looks out the window watching Peter leave, and a voice calls out asking if she's okay. She shuts the curtains and turns around. Yeah, thanks, Paul. Paul tells her that she's gonna need to be better than good. He can't hold them off any longer. Suddenly, the door bursts open as Mary Jane's son and daughter run in hugging her. Paul says that he's sorry, but if she needs a minute, he can get them the Stark pad. And Mary Jane tells him no. This is great. Everything is great. The next day, Peter sets out to try and figure out what it was that Tombstone meant by making him a project. The only way to really find out is by shaking up his operations a bit to get some more details. Over at the docks in Harlem, Rabbit gets another deal ready when suddenly Spider-Man shows up. She wastes no time telling Kareem to light him up, but as Peter hangs there, he notices his spider sense isn't tingling. Rabbit looks back telling Kareem to shoot him, but Kareem tells her that the man saved his life. What do you want me to do? She then turns back to Peter asking, how did you find us? With my powers of deduction, not the spider tracer on your SUV over there. But I didn't come here to bust up some goon activity. Where's Tombstone? She laughs, telling him that she isn't gonna talk. Peter looks at her. Really? Because I'm the one with leverage here. Neither of you want to spend a night in jail, so how about we make a deal? You tell me where Tombstone is, I'll go after him and leave you two alone. If Tombstone takes me down, you two go free. If I end up taking Tombstone down, then of course I'll come back for you, but you already have a head start. She thinks for a moment and then tells Peter the address, stating that she never told him that. Perfect, and you know what? I'll throw in a thwip for free. Before she could ask, Peter webs them up. Hey, we had a deal! He jumps up, webbing out. Make sure you tell the cops that when they're here. I'm sure they won't rest until they find the guy that broke a deal with a criminal rabbit. As Kareem starts to pull off the webbing, he asks if she isn't worried about selling Tombstone out. And she asks him, what makes you think I did? Later, as Peter arrives in the Upper East Side, he finds dozens of bodies scattered around a truck and Tombstone sitting in it. As he lands, Tombstone laughs. I forgot how exhausting all this crap is. What did you do, Tombstone? Didn't Peter give you a message? The deal you broke up? Called my skills as a businessman into question. I'm reasserting myself, Spider-Man. Peter yells, "Are you blaming me? You think that this is my fault? This? Nah. We needed Crime Master's guns. Took 2 truckloads already. Now I need to make an example out of Crime Master here. You're right, it doesn't concern you. You can run along." Peter tells him that he knows that that's not going to happen, and then webs past Tombstone, flinging himself into the truck, asking, "You wanted to teach me a lesson? Well, I'm right here. Are you happy?" He begins to beat Tombstone down, with Tombstone laughing. "Yeah, I am." Suddenly, the hydraulic walls activate and they begin to close in around Peter as he tries to fight his way out. But Tombstone is standing there blocking the path. He tries to swing, but as he pulls his arm back, he realizes he doesn't have enough space. Tombstone grabs him with a bear hug and begins to squeeze the life out of him. He flexes his arms tighter and tighter, and Peter can feel his ribs cracking under the pressure. The last thing Peter can see before he passes out is the smiling Tombstone. A short while later, back at the docks, the truck carrying both Peter and Tombstone pulls up to a warehouse. And once inside, White Rabbit looks around to make sure the coast is clear, shutting the giant loading door. Later, Peter begins to cough up his own blood as it's pooling underneath his mask, and Tombstone tells him, "It's time. Wake him up." Tombstone kicks Peter in the face, grabbing him by the mask, and as Peter begs him not to remove it, Tombstone tells him that he doesn't play dress up, and he doesn't care who he is. This next part, though, this is just so by the end of this, I can say that we're even. Tombstone begins to punch Peter over and over until he slumps back onto the dirt floor. He struggles, trying to break free, but Tombstone tells him, "The chains aren't gonna give. No one is going to hear you. We're in an abandoned subway tunnel under my Harlem safe house." Peter coughs. What is this? "This is me, teaching you a lesson." Tombstone grabs Peter, asking him, "Why did you come to Harlem? To break up my deal with Rose? What do we have to do with you?" "Because I'm the good guy and you're the bad guys." Tombstone laughs, and then one of his men picks up a box of roses and asks, "Where do you want these, boss?" "Upstairs, with the crew." After taking a few roses and putting them in their jackets, more of Tombstone's men show up wearing roses, and Peter asks what is going on. "Are those roses, men?" Tombstone tells him that that is what everyone is going to think. See, a good guy got him into this mess, so the good guys are going to get him out. His men, dressed up as Rose's goons, are going on a little rampage, and they're going to shoot up 125th Street. As far as anyone will know, Rose will have ordered the massacre. One of the good guys will see the carnage and take care of Richie Fisk for him. Doesn't matter who. Peter tries to break free again. "That's crazy! You don't have to do this! Civilians, they have nothing to do with this, Tombstone!" And Tombstone tells him, "Neither did you. But here we are." Soon, Tombstone's men begin to move out, and Tombstone tells him, "Before you die, I want you to know that I also have your old friend Robbie Robinson. Gonna show him what happens when his kid tries to take my daughter." Tombstone leaves with Peter screaming, "Don't do this! Please! I've learned my lesson!" Tombstone climbs up the ladder. "I bet you did, but it's too late to save the day, hero." Soon the gunmen get ready to shoot Peter, but just like before, he notices his spider sense isn't going off. And at that moment, Kareem comes running in. "Whoa, whoa, 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 hold up, change of plans. Boss wants you to peel off." Gunman asks, "Yeah? What about the bug?" Tombstone said he just wanted to scare him. "Leave him. We all gotta get out of here." The gunman points his pistol back at Peter. "Screw that. I did 5 years at Rikers because of this bug." And Kareem stops him. "No, I get that's where you're coming from, but..." He then pulls out a gun and club from the back of his waistband and smacks the gunman while pointing the gun at the others. "Nobody make a move." After pulling the keys off of the gunman, Kareem unlocks the cuffs. "We gotta go, Spider-Man." They're upstairs still getting ready. Upstairs, there's a thud at the door leading to the underground subway. And as the door takes more hits, the guards watching it all pull their guns. "That Digger?" Peter punches through the metal door, using it as a makeshift shield while he uses the dust as cover to knock the men out. Once free from the underground, Peter calls Randy, telling him that he needs to find Tombstone. "He has your dad!" But before Randy could even ask, Peter hangs up, continuing to run through Tombstone's safe house. He makes his way up the levels, taking down any and all gangsters that he finds. But as he reaches the top, he finds the room with one of Tombstone's men posing as a Rose member. The Rose points his gun at Peter, asking, "Where is Digger?" And Peter laughs, telling him that Tombstone even got one of his men to dress up like Rose. "Yeah, for you." He punches the man out and then he grabs him, lifting his mask, and finds that this man is in fact Richard Fisk. Peter stares for a few moments and then looks out the window and recognizes some of the buildings. He also isn't in Harlem. Across the way, downtown, Robbie and Tombstone are sitting in a room talking with Randy and Janice, running and shouting not to hurt him. Tombstone says, "Relax, I don't do that anymore." And Janice asks, what about the war? Tombstone tells her that he decided that there were things in his life that he wasn't ready to give up. So he left it to the proper authorities. As time passes, Peter finds himself looking down at the mess he's created. He took Rose's hideout apart like a madman, and that's going to make it hard for any charges to stick. But he won't be able to fight his turf war anymore. And that's all that matters to the guy who tricked him into doing it, Tombstone. He tricked Spider-Man into taking out Rose. Later, Peter tries to sneak back into his apartment when Black Cat catches him, telling him that she's heard some crazy stories about him lately. She wanted to make sure that things weren't bad again. Peter looks back with a bruised and bloodied face, asking when was the last time that they were good. He's gotten into some messy stuff, and he doesn't want her help. Black Cat tells him that she gets it. Everyone gets it. And she gets why. Peter says, "Oh yeah? Why's that?" And she tells him because his heart is broken. He can get as angry as he wants, but she knows that he's hurting. He's been playing injured since the accident with Ben Reilly. And she's not talking about his body. Peter stares in silence for a moment and then sighs. I don't know what to do. Yeah, you do. You need to stop playing hurt and start playing smart. Start by being you. You're the best at what you do when you're having fun. Peter shakes his head. I appreciate that you came by to check on me, but I've got to do this on my own. Of course you do, is all she can say to him as she turns around. Well, if you happen to find that smile of yours, give me a call. Maybe I'll let you chase me around for a bit. She leaves and Peter watches, smiling. It's the next day that Peter wakes up bright and early, keeping tabs on Tombstone when he sees that Tombstone is actually moving his operation. After spending several hours watching the trucks drive throughout all of the city, it finally stops at a warehouse and Peter has an idea. Later at Tombstone's home in Long Island, he gets a call from Rabbit, letting him know that things are going smoothly. And he tells her good. Let him know once the product has been moved. But as Tombstone pours himself a glass of wine, Peter tells him, "You know, your cat doesn't like me much." Tombstone takes a slow sip. "You don't really know when you're beat, do you?" "No, you got me. What am I going to do? Call the cops and report that the big bad Tombstone made me take down the Rose? Nah, you win. Whether I like it or not, this makes us a team." Tombstone tells him, "It would sure be embarrassing for you personally and professionally if anyone found out." Peter thinks about it. "I've been thinking about that. Maybe it's not the worst idea in the world. We could even keep this team up going. We could go ahead and make sure that everything is okay with the deals. Maybe even take down some of your competition. Yeah, we should just come out with it. Make it clear to all of your mob friends that Spider-Man acts exclusively under Tombstone's orders. Nothing to be ashamed about, unless that would make them mad." Tombstone glares. "What do you want?" Yeah, that's a fantastic question. Like I said, there isn't enough to put you away, but I certainly don't want to deal with the power struggle if I were to take you down. That would be like kicking a beehive. All I want is for you to play nice out there. Suddenly, Tombstone's phone begins to ring and Peter says, "Oh, and there's one more thing I wanted to mention. One of Rose's men found out where you've been keeping your product. I could have stepped in, but didn't know if you wanted me to keep the team thing a secret." Tombstone answers his phone. Rabbit is screaming that they've got a problem. Digger found them and they've got nothing to stop him. They're losing everything. Tombstone hangs up. "Is this you making a point?" "This is just so that by the end of this, I could say we're even." Later that night, Aunt May sits at the dinner table staring at the food that she made for her and Peter since Peter promised to come by more often. But as time ticks away past 6, she sighs, clearing the table, when there is a knock at the door. She opens it up and a black and blue Peter says, "Hey, I'm sorry for being late. Can I still take you up on that dinner?" May holds his face. What happened?" I tried racquetball, and racquetball tried its hand at my face. You know, just one of those things, May. She smiles. "What one of those things? But have a seat before it gets cold. It's good to see you, Peter." Peter smiles. "Thanks. It's good to be back." And that is the setup for the new Spider-Man run written by Zeb Wells, one of the guys who wrote Spider-Man Beyond. What's going to happen in the future? Well, I'm excited about this, but I was waiting to bring it to you until we had just a little bit to give you like the first full story. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you want more Spider-Man, let me know in the comments down below. It's your comments that are getting these videos out there and keeping this channel alive. So please, let me know what you like about Spider-Man and if you want more of this Spider-Man or if you just straight up hated it. Would love to have your comments about that. Give this video a like and subscribe, and I will see you next time right here at Comicstorian.